Hey, it's Shannon from iHeartRadio Canada here with JVN. Hello, you look so beautiful.
Oh man, thank you so much. This whole thing, I was just getting it together after gymnastics this morning. That's TBH why I was 3 minutes late. I was like trying to like brush my hair real fast, but thank you for saying I got it together and you look amazing too on this gorgeous morning.
Yeah, thank you. How was gymnastics? How'd it go?
It's good. It's it's harder as I get, but it's really fun. Actually, the coach I've been working with for the last 2 years, she's like moving to Madison, Wisconsin on like Saturday, so it was like our going away lesson. So I'm gonna miss Coach Kate, but I have new coach Miranda. So my gymnastics career will remain intact. Don't worry, I heard Canada. I don't want to freak anybody out.
Yeah, that would have been breaking news if that were the case. You're coming to Toronto for Just for Laughs, which is so exciting. How's it feel coming here for such a big festival?
I love Toronto. I love Just for Laughs. And I've really been lucky. I've gotten to come to Canada a lot this year, but I think what I'm most excited about is like, when I first started doing stand-up comedy in like 2018, really I had started like going up in like 16, 17, but obviously like Queer Eye really changed like the rooms and the opportunities that I was able to get. And I feel like in some ways, like in 20, I think I did Just for Laughs in Toronto in 2018, or maybe it was 19. It was one or maybe it's like so long ago, but I just feel like at the time I was like so honored to come, as I still am. But I think at the time, like I didn't understand how like maybe not ready my comedy was. And now, like I think, at the time, like you really needed to be like a fan of mine to understand like why it was funny. And I've worked so hard on my writing and my delivery and how just like my art of my stand-up comedy. I just think it's come such a long way. And this new show, Fun and Slutty, is all about owning our sex positivity, kind of getting to decide what that means for you, whether that is like doing the most or doing the least, as long as we are like really nurturing ourselves. But it's kind of making fun of also a lot of Republicans and conservatives. So it's like owning your life, but then also making fun of people who deserve it. So it's so much fun, and I can't wait for people to come see.
Well, a perfect, well-rounded show. I
I
love
think
that.
so too. Like, what else
Yeah,
could you need?
totally. Something that I'm so envious about you is that it just seems like you have an interest in something and then you pick it up and then you master it and then you move on to something else. Like whether it's gymnastics or writing a book or comedy, is there anything else that you kind of have your eye on that you want to explore, or another hobby you want to pick up?
I think goals are really important. I was actually just talking about that in therapy yesterday with my therapist, but it's weird because I think really like I love writing and I'm so not done writing. I really love all of the things that I get to do. So I'm definitely not done with any of them. And I don't think that I've like gotten so good at any of them that I couldn't learn more. I will say for figure skating, not to scare Canada again, not to double scare. I do feel like figure skating, I got to this point where I like like learning harder things, I like started to get scared because I fell so hard so many times. I was like, girl, this hip is gonna go one of these times. Like, but I just really miss being on the ice. And I've been having this kind of conversation with myself of like, you don't have to like get all like just go have fun, and like just you don't have to like you're not trying to be a competitive athlete. Like, just get on the ice. So I'm gonna like start going back because I was like, I miss it. I don't have to. I just got a little scare because my ankies and my hips were like, but who needs a single lutz? I know I don't. My ankle
Exactly.
can't bear the load, so I'll just be like a spinning queen.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I also loved learning when I was doing my research that you played the violin growing up, and I played the violin growing up as well.
Like I played for like real like fourth grade till like the end of high school, but I actually got a really nice violin last year with the intention of like repicking it up, and I did like lessons when I was in New Orleans last summer, and then I kind of remembered how hard it was,
It is hard.
and then I was like, uh, uh. So now I just walk past that nice violin sitting on my shelf, like in the case, and I'm like, I really need to say hello. Actually, I
Yeah.
think I might do that later. I really gotta start doing that again.
I was gonna say I was in that same situation where I just like didn't pick it up for years, and then when I did pick it up, I wasn't as good at all. So then that was also very discouraging. But the more I've done it, the better it's gotten.
Yeah,
It's baby
for
steps.
sure.
You have more shows that are coming out as well. Pretty curious, curious now, and extra curious. What made you want to expand on those?
Well, I mean, podcasting is one of my biggest passions. I've been doing Getting Curious since the end of 2015. So I've been in the podcast game for like a lot longer than I think a lot of people maybe know. But Getting Curious, I mean, in that time, I think I took from like there was like 6 months I think I took off like in 2017 when I was like shooting. like the very beginning of Queer Eye. But but other than those times, that's like why in all of these years we're up to like 350 something episodes instead of how many you would be if it had like, so obviously there's like a little 6 month break in there. But like there's so many things I've learned about and I don't really get to like reach back out to those people or like touch base with them like again. And then a lot of times, like, I mean, I've interviewed like like earthquake experts or like very niche experts, and then like there's an earthquake or there's like a thing where like I want to have them back to talk about like something that's happening now. Same thing with like legal scholars, activists, politicians. Because I'm obviously very curious and interested in like LGBTQI plus rights, a lot of all things legislation, environmental, like I have like a lot of passions that just kind of typically come back up on getting curious. So Curious Now is like a place for us to like touch back base on those. But Curious Now also is like, it's giving my headlines. Like I do my headlines at the beginning, which is kind of different for us. So I kind of like giving you the read on my headlines, and we do like these little segments which we've never done before. So it's kind of like a faster, like different kind of experience. And then we go to an interview to like kind of touch base on like the thing that we're really delving into that week. So that's Curious Now. Pretty Curious is all about beauty, because I was like, I just miss salon talk. I miss shop talk. I love, and I've gotten really into makeup in the last like year and a half. Because I kind of was like, I was still like in a makeup rut where I was like, I know how to do my like on camera makeup, but I don't need to like do all the most extra things. But then I was like, I went through this, I'm like in this expressive creative phase with my makeup, and I've gotten way more just interested in it. And so Pretty Curious is a place for me to like just kind of have that like salon talk and that salon dynamic that you have in the salon that I kind of really very much miss, because that was like my entire like adult life. So Pretty Curious is like, it's like I give like a little like, it's like my makeup thing of the week, the thing that I'm loving right now for makeup, skincare, hair care, body care. And then we go back into an interview with like either it'll be a beauty founder, a hairdresser, a makeup artist, a skincare expert, maybe someone who's more on like the business side of beauty. So that's like our beauty offering. And then Ask JVN is basically like my like talk sex with Sue Johansson. I don't know if y'all had that in Canada. Do you remember her?
Yeah.
Sue Johansson. Yeah, we're obsessed because she was Canadian, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
I love Sue Johansson, R.I.P. I loved her so much. She is like amazing. She was just so amazing. And I watched her show all the time on Oxygen at like 11 when my parents would be asleep, and I'd have to like change the channel really quick if someone like ran downstairs. I'd be like, I'm not watching it. I'm not. But yeah, so Ask JVN is basically that, but I'm not a doctor and I probably have way worse advice than her.
That's great though. I think that's a good way to be.
Yeah. Me too.
Do you think that your sense of curiosity comes from having family members that were journalists and broadcasters?
I absolutely think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up like running around a newsroom of a newspaper, like after school, like if the sitter was like sick or I could, or like whatever, like, and my mom had to like bring me to work, which would happen, not like every day, but a lot. And so I would be like running around the newsroom and running around like the photography room. And I mean, I was like there like before there was computers that did layout. It was like X-Acto knives and like rubber cement and like dark rooms with like the photography. And it was a really cool experience. And I think, growing up at our dinner table, like we would often talk about news and about what was going on in the world, because that is just kind of naturally like what happened. So I'm really grateful. I think that is where my curiosity came from.
Yeah, totally. And from one interviewer to another, I love how comfortable you make all of your guests when you talk to them. Is there anything in particular that you do, like any tips or tricks that you do to like make your guests feel that extra level of comfort?
Well, I do have to like really take my hat off for our team. Like I've been working with our executive producer of Getting Curious. Her name is Erica Ghetto for the last like 3 years, and our team is just, they take such good care of our guests. We do so much research. Like we really put so much work into like creating what we do every week, and our episodes are so all over the place that like, I mean, because one week we're learning about like how dust impacts global warming, which like I didn't even know that was possible, to like the history of pockets, to like the science of sleep, to then like how HIV affects, or just like how all viruses affect communities differently. So like it's just, we got to be nimble because we're kind of going all over the place, and so it's really, our team I think does such an incredible job. And I think for me personally, I don't know. I think I can tell, having been interviewed a lot in the last, like 6 years, and obviously I was interviewing before and after that, but like I can tell when someone wants to be there and when someone like doesn't want to be there. And
Right.
if they care or if they don't care about like because ultimately like our guests have poured like their life's work into this. And so, and I think that's like a part of my ADHD that I really use to my strength is that like I really only can learn about something if I'm like truly interested in it. If I'm not like that jazzed about learning about it, it's like hard for me to. So I think that is part of like what makes people comfortable because I'm like seriously really curious about what we're learning about because that's like our only really big rule for the podcast is like I gotta really be because obviously a lot of times people like pitch things and I'm not like not that I don't think that's interesting, but it's got to be something that like I'm really freaking curious about because I think that is like where like that like energy comes from.
Yeah, and that authenticity too. You can totally hear that.
Yes, honey. Authenticity
Yeah.
Station. We love that stop.
Yeah, totally. With talking about so many things like climate change and things going on in the news, also like the uptick in hate towards the LGBTQ plus community, as somebody whose whole persona and personality is so optimistic, what are the things that you do to keep that optimism up? Because it's disheartening.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like inner child work, like in therapy, like, and that really is like what my figure skating is. It's part of what my gymnastics is. Like this morning, and like I've picked up pickleball recently. Like I think it's so fun. So I think it's really like I think as a non, this is also something about being non-binary that kind of has come naturally to me, but I didn't have words for it. But like, it doesn't have to be either or. Like, it doesn't have to be that because there is a worse and noticeably worse climate for LGBTQI plus people. That doesn't mean that you like aren't allowed to experience joy or have healing. And that's something I write about a lot in my books. It's like some of your biggest joys will live right next to your biggest sorrows. Like some of your, most big celebrations will live right next to your like deepest griefs. And that's part of like life and they don't have to invalidate each other. So I think it's about like making space for both of those experiences, like really cultivating space for like, as I say in queer, I like the pockets of joy thing. Like that's really important when things are really off so that you can kind of reset and come back to do the work that you're passionate about. Like they balance, they help each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that totally makes sense. That's crazy. Yeah. So I recently got engaged to a
Ah,
woman.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was a double proposal, which is crazy. We both proposed to each other.
Oh
Um,
my God.
yeah,
Completely
right?
unplanned.
And completely unplanned. It's so wild.
Wow, that's like a book.
Yeah, seriously, it's like a movie moment. But I wanted to ask you, as someone who has now been married, do you have any marriage advice for someone like myself who is about to take on that next step in their lives?
Oh. Okay, this is the advice I would give.
Okay.
I think it's sometimes I think that advice, even though it's like so well intentioned, can actually be really misguided, especially in relationships. Because unless it's coming from like a Brene Brown or like, a literal psychologist or someone who is like, a Stan Tatkin who like invented like the psychobiological approach to couples therapy, like which is called pact therapy, which I'm obsessed with, by the way. So that is get into pact therapy. It's really
Okay.
interesting. And read like Wired for Dating and Wired for Love because they're both really incredible. They're based off of like pact therapy, but like relationships are as unique as there are people in the world.
Mhm.
Because every two people are going to come together in relationship like a little bit differently. So just because one person is saying like in my marriage it was this and like you don't have to take everything or anything as like Bible because just because like something didn't work for someone or someone else wasn't able to like get past a certain like tough point because there will inevitably be tough points doesn't mean that it has to work or not work or that you have to stay or go or you know what I mean, like it's
Yeah.
just you get to make it what it is for yourself. And I think I've always had so much fear like when I read something about like like if the headline in the relationship story is like if you're like 13 signs your man is X or 13 signs, like I think a lot of that stuff it can be like well intentioned, but really it can just like give you a lot of fear. And like we don't have to use anyone else's like guideposts for like the health of our relationships. And actually, one thing that Stan says is that Stan's really into like secure functioning relationships and insecure functioning relationships.
Mhm.
And he says that if you have an insecure functioning relationship, it's possible for it to become secure functioning, like as long as both people want to.
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of like a beautiful, interesting thing.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. Thank you so much. Our
And have
marriage will
fun.
last
And
forever.
just have so much fun. You know what I
Yeah, we will.
mean? Is your
Yeah.
wedding going to be big or small? Do you even know yet? Because you guys just got
Oh,
engaged.
yeah, we're gonna do it like pretty small. My family's not accepting, and half of her family's not accepting. So we're just gonna
Oh,
make it like
fuck. Well, that
friends.
just naturally kind of like,
Yeah,
oh man.
which is
Well,
fine.
I think like, I mean, Mark and I got married like in our backyard with like a judge and my old assistant who was like an incredible photographer. So we got some like really intimate, like gorge pics. And it was also the height of COVID. So that's why there was like 4 people outside.
Yeah,
Um, but I do feel bad for a lot of my friends who have like big weddings because you're just like, you just see everyone getting pulled from like place to place to place. And like, do
yeah.
they even really remember? Because and it's not like you can really spend like a lot of quality time with like everyone. It's just like little baby bits with everybody. So no offense to gigantic wedding havers, but I do think it's hard to create like, it just is such a whirlwind. And then it's like
Yeah, and so expensive. It
so
just a
expensive. And then
lot.
it's like, it reminds me of like, I don't know if I want to say, yeah, no, right. I got my filter kicked in. But
Okay.
yeah, it's just, it's a lot of money for for a fleeting thing.
Yeah, looking into it too, we're like, should we just go to the courthouse and like take cute pics there? Like, so
And do really cute, gorgeous outfits.
yeah, totally. If
Ugh.
you want to officiate, let me know.
Oh yeah, let me know. Am I allowed to as like an American in Canada?
So
Like, can I?
we'll figure it out.
Would it still be binding? I don't want to
Yeah.
have like, I don't want you guys to have like a legal issue on like the the validity of your marriage because I'm like American or something.
I'll do some research. She's American too, so there's got to be
Oh, and
something.
so maybe it works. Maybe like, oh my God,
Thank
congratulations.
you. That's so nice of you to say. I
Oh.
appreciate that. Going back
Oh.
to, I want to twist a little bit more serious, but even though this is so
Oh.
fun, but kind of going back to what we were talking about with like being optimistic and handling different things. A thing that my fiance and I talk about a lot is whether it's, I don't know how I want to phrase this, whether it's our job to put ourselves in the position of talking to people who are homophobic or spending time with like a homophobic family in hopes that they kind of change their mind versus just not seeing that as our job and then not communicating with them in that way. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of side do you take when it comes to that? Do you think that it is our responsibility to like have those conversations, or do you think it's all about protecting our peace?
I literally don't know because I'm kind of going through like
Yeah.
something similar at the moment, and um, I really don't know.
Yeah.
I really, I've done both. Like I've stayed really engaged and really close, and then I've also been like, you know what? I need some space because this is just so deeply upsetting to know that this is how you align yourself and just like how hypocritical, it is, or you're being in this case and being, the person that I love that is, I've sat with people, I've made boundaries with people, I've kind of done both ways. And I just think it really is one of the most challenging things of our time. But here's what I will say. I think the most important thing for that, and I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this, I think it's less about us trying to change the minds of people don't who already decided that they are gonna like they've already been kind of radicalized through the disinformation or misinformation. And if radicalized is too strong of a term for anyone listening, like they've already made up their mind based off of disinformation and misinformation to either being like anti-trans, anti-queer, anti-gay, whatever. And so, but I do think that when you look at like election turnout, especially in the United States. I don't know as much about Canada, but I'm sure it's kind of not that different.
Yeah.
And we have like 60% voter turnout is considered like historic. Like that's considered like gigantic. And obviously there's voter disenfranchisement in this country because of our, horrible legacies of racism in the mass incarceration system. But I think if we can talk to more people who just don't realize the discrimination that's going on under their nose and they don't realize the hypocrisy that's going on under their nose and kind of like wake people up to the way that like especially queer people right now are being scapegoated, and all the while like the rich are getting richer, people who are experiencing like homing insecurity or educate lack of education, and just like a middle class that has like no way for like upward, actually not even just the middle class, like anybody that just has like a lack of upward economic mobility on the whole. Like the amount of people like me who are allowed to like gain success and then get really move up in the world, it's not like that for like it used to be more possible, and it's way more impossible now because of the cost of healthcare, education, housing, and all of this is going on. Why people are fighting over if 1.6% or 1.6 million people can live their lives, or if really mediocre and terrible trans athletes are allowed to play in their like local golf clubs. You know what I'm saying? Like they've got us thinking that like women are getting gold medals stolen from them at the Olympics, and they're thinking that that's the biggest threat to our society through trans people, when we have record homelessness, record hunger, record illiteracy, record, you know what I'm saying, like record fucking everything. It ain't trans people, and it never has been. Because in the 70s it was gay, like it was the gays, and then in the 60s it was the gays, and then it was the fucking communists, and then it was the Middle Eastern, it's the there's always someone that like we're just so scared of, and we always are pinning it on someone. So it's I think it's really now about convincing people who have not made up their minds and people who are like, I don't read the news because I don't think my voice matters. They aren't really like committed to believing or to like not believing in LGBTQ equality. They just don't know. So I think let's spend our energy there as
Yeah.
opposed to like trying to like, be around people who have like already fucking watched Fox, excuse me, have already watched so much Fox News and have like already just been so bathed in misinformation and disinformation that like it's like let's just like save our energy for people who are actually like capable of changing, which I think are like more undecided people. Not that you couldn't change minds, because I think the people's hearts and minds have been changed. Not to do the longest answer of all time, but I would also say, even though this is so hard, it takes a really long time. So even if you are like trying to work with someone or whatever, if you do it does take like a long time. It's like really never instantaneous. It
Mhm.
usually takes like a loved one or themselves or some sort of life event to make them realize, or just time. Also, another thing I learned on getting curious, sleep. Sleep is not only to just like rest and refresh, but like if sleep is actually really important neurologically for like making new connections in your brain or like breaking old connections. So like when we get ingrained in beliefs from a very young age that are racist, transphobic, misogynistic, whatever, if you end up becoming like, really dependent, or if you just end up not getting good sleep for whatever reason, and because like alcohol affects sleep, even marijuana, like all these different things affect like the quality of your sleep. And if you aren't getting like the right sort of sleep, you can't make like, it's a lot harder to make new connections, which is like literally something I learned in the podcast with our neuroscientist and sleep expert. But I was saying that I was like, wow, there's like a lot of like, obviously there's alcoholics on the left, there's like addicts on every side of the political spectrum, but I do think about like all of the people who are just like not getting good sleep, like aren't, taking good care of themselves because they have anxiety from whatever. And I would have anxiety too if the president of the United States was saying that you're being replaced and you have no future and you don't have a job, and it's these like the web that the conservatives spin. I would be fucking anxious too if I didn't know that it was a propaganda lie,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I just think that's like hard. Like they're just like they're just freaking all these people out, like thinking trans people and immigrants are coming to kill them or whatever the hell they're saying. But really, it's like, ultimately, kind of. I mean, we're not, but we are. It's duality. It's
Yeah,
confusing.
totally.
But
That's a
not
great
like the
answer.
world's longest answer.
I loved it. No, it's very informative. I didn't know any of that about sleep. That's
Oh
wild.
yeah, it's so important. Yeah, sleep, honey. I was like, when she was telling us about sleep, I was like, this is why everything's so fucked up. Like no one's getting sleep. Like no one's getting like the sleep to like to learn new shit.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. That's so wild. Jonathan, thanks you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So such a pleasure to talk.
Congratulations on getting engaged. I hope you have just like
Thank
the most
you.
amazing wedding.
Thank you. I'll see you there.
Okay, yeah, let me know. Let me know the dates. And we gotta see the legalese. Are Americans allowed to marry Canadians and have it
Yeah.
be binding, darling?
We'll find out.